Okay, this is the story of Southern Pennsylvania Bus Company's mystery engine. And the story starts on Woodland Avenue in Southwest Philadelphia, where you see here a driveway coming out behind this building. That was the main gate of ACF Brill Company. In 1954, Bill Powelson came out of that gate with the vice president of production of ACF Brill. And they were having lunch together. And you see a building there that says cash debit. The left side of that was Linton's Restaurant in 1954. Bill Powelson, I think, had worked at Brill's. He certainly knew a lot about them. He knew all the people who worked there. And he was the head of maintenance at Southern Pennsylvania Bus Company in Chester. And he would buy parts. He had all kinds of relationships with Brill's. He loved Brill's. He really thought they were a fine piece of equipment. He was enthusiastic about them. And while they were eating lunch, the vice president mentioned to him that Brill's was going to close. They were going to go out of the bus business. Everything was going to be sold. And Bill Powelson was astounded. He just couldn't believe this was happening. And he told the vice president, "This is terrible. You shouldn't do that. You can't do it. It's just a horrible thing." So they got up, and this vice president really was mad because Bill Powelson had disagreed with the decision that had been made. And this particular vice president had a reputation around the plant as being a kind of a hard-driving guy. The president of Brill's, Charles Pirelli, Bill Powelson said, would come up and put his arm around your shoulder and explain what he wanted done. This particular vice president, whose nickname was Steamboat, his answer to everything was a kick in the butt to get things done. So that was the difference between the two. So this particular vice president was just very mad at Bill Powelson for counteracting what they had put into plan. It was a Linton's Restaurant, by the way. That was the name of the Linton's. They were very popular in Philadelphia. Now, as I said, Bill Powelson was in charge of Southern Pennsylvania Bus Company in Chester, Pennsylvania. And they had two kinds of buses. They had IC-41s. They were used for school trips, football teams going to play away games. And they also had C-36s. And Bill Powelson said that the ACF Brill Company lent an experimental engine to his bus company, and it was a Hall Scott diesel, a pancake diesel. And he said this vice president was irate with him for disagreeing with him during lunch. So he wrote a letter to the company that diesel engine had to be sent back to Brill's. And Bill Powelson said that Hall Scott diesel engine was as smooth as silk. And So he had his men take the engine out and send it back to the company. I've never read anybody else's reports on this motor. There was a Hall Scott diesel back in the 30s for boats. But what I think may have happened, after World War II, Brill's was in a lot of trouble. Hall Scott was their division. Any money Hall Scott made had to be sent to Philadelphia. And it was that way up until they got the military contracts for the Korean War. Then Brill started making money. And Hall Scott maybe was allowed to keep some money, and they did an experiment with a diesel. Diesels were very hot at that time. General Motors was running diesels. The Cummins diesel was hot. Even ACF Brill used it in their IC41As, would be the AC41AD. But that's the mystery. Now, Bill Palson's gone. I talked to him in the fall of 1973 at the Abraham Lincoln in Reading, Pennsylvania. There was a bus conference there. That's when I met him. He told me many, many interesting stories, but that is the most mysterious one. No one will ever know unless somebody worked at that bus company and can verify it, but those guys would be awful old by this time. Anyway, that's the story of the Southern Pennsylvania Bus Company's Hall Scott diesel.